Hello, everyone. Happy Friday or happy Saturday to some of you. Welcome to the weekly show of What is School For? My name is I am the host of this weekly live streaming show. You can also listen to us on iTunes on the audio-based podcast. And on this show, we interview leading educators, parents, students, education professionals. Happy Friday or happy Saturday to some of you. If you can mute that, Kevin.
That's not me.
Now on you. Is that on me? Live streaming show. Hold on. So listen to us on iTunes on the. Hold on, everyone. We're having some. And on this show, we interview leading educators, technical issues. Parents, is this on me? Education professionals.
It sounds like your voice.
Yeah. So is it gone? I think so. Yeah. So, oh my God, I have at least like 100 windows open. So I'm trying to find my StreamYard link, by the way. So I think you're aware. Yeah. So sorry about that. Hello, we already have friends here. So on this show, I interview leading educators, education professionals, parents, students, entrepreneurs, business leaders to come here to discuss, debate, and disrupt education. The goal is to future-proof the next generation. And today we are talking about emotional stress. That is a very common issue among today's youth, teenagers, and young adults. And my own children and myself, I think we all from time to time struggle with our own emotional stress. So today we are discussing how we can tap into the power of neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis to eliminate our emotional stress. A really powerful topic, and join me live is the one and only Kevin Martin, who is an expert on this topic. For those of you who don't know who is Kevin, he is an author, a speaker, a seminar leader, an entrepreneur, and a coach. He's the Master Practitioner of NLP and Hypnosis, and he has been in this field for 25 plus years. Very impressive. And the more I get to know Kevin, the more I'm impressed by his body of work. So we are all in for a treat. By the end of this interview, you will have a much better understanding of what is neuro-linguistic programming and what are some ways that you can apply this to your day-to-day life, especially if you have children, to really help your children understand their own emotions and subconscious mind and how they can learn to reprogram their subconscious mind and to eliminate depression, anxiety, anger, and to become more emotional intelligent. So really excited for today's conversation. And we are live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Periscope, on Twitch. And if you are live with us right now, let me know in the comment section where you guys are joining us live from. I love my global community. And Kevin, welcome to the show.
Oh, wow. I am so excited to be here, Dr. I'm thrilled. Ever since we talked and I said to be able to share things with your community, I'm very impressed with the work you do. And I'm impressed with anyone who helps children the way you do. I love it when you talk about disruptive education. A lot of the things I do is help people disrupt those negative habits and those negative things that are in their life. And there are some things that are not so good in our education. So it's nice to disrupt it too. So I thank you for having me here. Thank you very much.
Of course. So I'm really excited for today's conversation. And, this is something that we also talk about at my own school, Classroom Without Walls, because I think it's really, really important that children learn how to manage their own emotions. So share with us, today we're talking about neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis. Most people in the live audience, including myself, we may not be very familiar with those terms. So what are the definitions so that we can make sure that we're actually on the same page before we go deep? We're going to go deep, everyone.
All right, fantastic. NLP, not to be confused for those of you that are computer literate, there's a computer language out there called natural language processing. That's not it. It's called neuro-linguistic programming is what NLP is that I do. Neuro being your nervous system, your neurology, your body. Linguistic being words, communications, but it's not simply words. There's a lot of language models in NLP, but it's all about what the words are conveying both externally and internally. So the communication internal as well, which is a really important part of this, and programming. And that scares a lot of people away, or at least it did when this came out back in the late 70s and 80s. It's not about programming people. It's about figuring out how we're programmed and being able to make, once we figure it out, being able to make those little changes. Just like a programmer would look at a piece of software that they didn't write, they'd have to figure out how if there's a problem, they have to figure out how it's written and then how to make the change to fix it. I didn't write your software. The creator did. When you were born, it was starting to be written already. So I actually, when you have a problem, I actually help you figure out how you're programmed. And that's what the programming is in NLP. So what that does is, the body, language, and the programming, it's all about mind, body. As a matter of fact, sometimes I define it as a manual for the mind and body. And it's amazing the kind of things and the kind of changes that can be done. Now, hypnosis can be scary to some. There's a lot of myths about hypnosis. We've had entertainment with hypnosis. We've had all sorts of movies, dramatic things and thrillers about hypnosis, about how someone's controlling somebody's mind. I can't do that. Hypnosis doesn't really allow for that. You can't, when you're in hypnosis, you're still not going to do whatever you really don't want to do. Hypnosis is a not do to process, it's a do with process. And it sounds woo-woo. But it has a lot of scientific basis. And for both NLP and hypnosis, we use this thing called trance. And trance is just simply when your brain frequencies slow down. And I tell you, we are in trance every day, Dr. I. Wow. You probably have been in trance several times already this morning. When you're driving and all of a sudden your thought process goes to something and you look around and say, wow, how did I get this far? Or I just missed my exit. You were in trance. When you're watching a movie and you get so much into the movie that you're really into one of the characters and you're crying with them or laughing with them, you're in trance. When you're watching a movie or reading a book and you look up and say, wow, how does so much time go by? You're in trance. We're all in trance. We're in trance watching commercials. That's scary. So when you're in trance, all that means is you're very suggestible. And when you're working with a hypnotist or an NLP practitioner like myself, you're there like you would be with a doctor. You have a problem and you're hoping that they're going to find the solution. So trance allows us to actually take the solution and work with it, not at a conscious level, but at what we call a subconscious level.
Okay. Yeah, so powerful. Like, yes, I so agree. And I love how you mentioned, I think this is such a aha moment for me, like not about programming people, but actually figure out how we are programmed. Like human beings, we are all being programmed, right? We don't even realize that every day we run on autopilot. And when you think about our day-to-day life, today is almost the same as yesterday and as the day before. So I love that. I love that. So thanks for sharing. I feel like I think there was a question. Thank you so much for joining us live, everyone. It's so great to see you all. So here's Walter. Thank you for joining us live. I don't know if you can answer this question, Kevin. So he's asking, who were the progenitors of natural linguistic programming?
The progenitors, meaning the creators?
I think so. That's kind of how I interpret it.
I believe so. Yes, it's a couple of gentlemen that met at, I believe it was Berkeley, One was a professor. There was John Grinder and Richard Bandler. And they met and they came up with this idea that, how do I model? How can I model someone who's doing something really at a high level, an excellent level, an expert? How do I model an expert? And so much so that I can transfer what they do to someone else and they can become experts. It's like, I always think of it as like, okay, you have a chef who creates all these great things and they write a cookbook and their exact recipes. But that's not really a model, because they might tell you everything that goes in there and tell you as much as they can, but they have a hard time getting it. So that's why you can take a recipe from one of those chefs, but when you take your food, your outcome, and you compare it to theirs, there's still a difference, because there's all sorts of things in modeling that, like thoughts, like, they might say, okay, when I smell it a certain way. Now they can't write that down, but that's part of their process. So modeling becomes that. So these two gentlemen modeled therapists and one of the world's top renowned hypnotists. And what they came up with is not only the ability to reproduce what they do, but they came up with a lot of strategies, a lot of techniques that can do just little things like phobias. All right. Hey, 16 weeks at least in therapy with for a phobia. I have gotten rid of phobias that were as long as someone had it as long as 50 years in a demonstration in front of a class in 15 minutes. In 15 minutes. Because the way the mind worked, the way the subconscious works, it's pretty straightforward for certain things like phobias and fears.
That's powerful. I want to interrupt you for a second. So can you share with us, how did you do it? I'm sure we all have, like, who doesn't have fears in their life, right? Fear of height, fear of flying, fear of this and that, fear of failure, fear of being judged, right?
Yeah.
Like, so share with us, how did you do that in 15 minutes? For how long? 15 years, right?
Yeah. No, it doesn't always take 15 minutes, but it doesn't take 16 weeks. It could take 1 or 2 sessions for a phobia. Usually it's one session, but it's all about, remember I said programming, right? So when you think of something you have a fear of, what image comes to mind? And that image is how you're programmed to see that. And I just take that image and I do something with it. And it's all about how you imagine things and how when you get into a state of trance and then your subconscious starts to become aware and you're imagining something like that, you can skew the image. But I tell you, I'll give you an example of one of the ways in which we work with fears and phobias is, say someone comes in and they're terrified of dogs. And I've met people that are terrified of dogs. They actually cross the street when there's someone walking their dog. And because they got bit when they were 3 years old. They know everything about they got bit because their parents told them. They have some memories of it, but they can't logically get themselves to think, well, there's millions of other people that have dogs and haven't gotten bit. It doesn't process. But at a subconscious level, when they go back there and realize, hey, I got bit because I was stepping on its tail and pulling its ears, of course the dog's gonna bite me. When the subconscious, not the conscious mind, when the subconscious mind realizes it and gets that light bulb, it says, oh yeah, I shouldn't really be afraid of other dogs because I'm not going to be stepping on their tails and pulling their ears anymore. So it's when it's being done in the atmosphere of trance, of actually using the subconscious in the visualization. When that's being done that way, the subconscious mind goes, oh yeah, and it goes away.
Wow, just like that, right? That's like that.
Just like that.
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking about like smoking, all those things can be probably also prevented this way. So I know, the classic iceberg model, the tip of the iceberg is our conscious mind, and the everything underneath the tip is our
Mhm.
subconscious mind. Do you know a specific percentage of our conscious versus subconscious mind? I'm just curious if there's
I don't know that there's any accurate scientific way to measure, but it's always, you've always heard the saying that we only use 10% of our brain. All right, it's not accurate to say brain, because we can really scientifically measure all the activity in our brain, but it's accurate to say our conscious and subconscious. Consciously, it's really, there's only a 10% of us. There's a lot in our subconscious mind. When we talk about our subconscious mind, and you work with children, so that this kind of programming that we're talking about happens mostly from like 0 to 7, 0 to 8 years old. I've been doing this for many years, working with hundreds and hundreds of clients. Almost every single emotional problem they bring to me goes back to the early years. And you know what? They don't have the most of them don't have the emotional problem at all until sometime in later years. But your subconscious mind says, oh yeah, I'll connect this with this that happened to you earlier in life. And all of a sudden it's like me. I got a phobia of heights in my 30s. Guess what I was doing in my earlier years and in my college years? My father had a plane. I was flying a small plane all over the place. I was jumping out of airplanes. I was hang gliding. I did not have a fear of heights. And sometime around in my 30s, I got a really intense fear of heights. It was so intense I couldn't, lean over balconies if I was more than four stories high. I couldn't go to glass elevators and stuff like that. Guess what? Where the problem originated? When I was 6.5 years old and fell out of a tree onto a barbed wire fence, and I had completely forgotten about that. So a lot of our problems go back to early childhood, but they don't always start there and continue. They start there at some point, and they're sitting there waiting for an event that's going to connect to it, and all of a sudden. And by the way, all the problems we have as adults, all the emotional issues and things like that, they originate as something to protect us. Doesn't it make sense if our subconscious mind thinks that we're going to get hurt if we're in a certain height, that it's going to say, hey, I'm going to prevent you from going there by giving you this intense fear. All right. So really, these things that trouble us originate as something that was there to protect us, to help us. And once the subconscious mind can really, gather that it no longer needs to do this, we're adults now. We know not to step off of a tall building. We know this stuff. Once the subconscious mind learns this, it usually shuts down whatever the problem goes away.
It's so powerful, and I agree. Like I was also doing, because I'm really interested in brain and neuroscience. I was doing research on this myself quite a few years ago, and I discovered before a kid turns 8 years old, so everything comes to the kid, they absorb that as fact, right? I'm just thinking about all the labels my parents, my teachers told me, you're so stupid, you are so fat, you're so thin, you're such a troublemaker. And we don't even have our analytical brain yet. So before 8 years old, and imagine how much baggage that we're carrying as we enter like adulthood, right? Like I think what you said is so fascinating. It's almost like unpeeling the layers of onion to really get to the root of the problem.
Right.
And, which is great. Yeah.
You made a good point. We don't realize this as parents, and I wish I had learned this very early on, but I started to learn it as in my parenting. That there's things that we say and there's things that we do that can cause issues for a long time. Labels, especially negative labels, are things that stick with children. They really are. But I'm gonna say something that's maybe going to blow you away and blow your audience away. It's not just 0 to 8. There's a whole lot of scientific evidence that says in the womb, when the birth mother is pregnant, and the emotions that she endures, and the things that happen to her, that affects that child as they grow up. I just had a client last year, and we were doing some exploration and some what we call age regression. And went back to 3 months in the womb. 3 months. And a lot of people are going to say that basically that can't be possible. It is possible. There's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of books out there. And he said that's where my fear began. So I was talking to his mother, and she said, "Oh my God, when I was 3 months pregnant, that was 9/11."
Wow.
Wow. And she had this thought that she held for a long time that said, why am I bringing a child into a world like this? And his problem was fear. So, wow. And he had no idea of that, by the way. He had no idea that 3 months of her pregnancy when he was in the womb, he had no idea that was 9/11. So it was an amazing thing. It amazed me. I already knew this kind of stuff, but it just was still amazing to see the evidence.
That is so powerful. And now what you mentioned reminds me of some articles that I read, even like our past generation, right? Like what happened in our past, we can even carry that baggage. I was like, wow, this is too cool.
Did you know about the study they did? I think it's about 4 years old now. It was either MIT or Harvard. I'm going to have to look this up. They took rats and they trained them to do the mazes. And those rats had children. And they didn't do any mazes with those. And those rats had children. Now, 3 generations down, right? And those rats, putting them in the same mazes that their grandparents had, they knew the way around. Evidence that memories come down in DNA. So it gets a little scary when you're thinking about your problems. Is it from my parents and grandparents or great grandparents, ancestral? It gets scary. But yes, there are things that are transferred down that can be root causes of our problem.
That's why, I have been an entrepreneur for a short period of time. What I really learned is the journey to starting a business, education, success is really an inside out journey. We really have to work with the inside first in order to transform the outside, right?
Yeah.
If we want to be wealthier outside, but we have to feel wealthy inside first. And if you couldn't overcome that self-limiting belief, it's very hard for us to manifest abundance, wealth externally. That was a huge transformation for me when I realized that, oh my God, it all starts with the within. And really, really powerful when I realized that. Yeah. We have so many great questions from our live audience. Before we answer your questions, I want to ask Kevin, I know you have a very personal story that really inspired you to be on this path. And so do you mind sharing that personal story that inspired you to pursue a career in NLP and hypnosis, doing what you do today?
No, I don't mind. I don't mind at all. I'll give you a little history. I wasn't always doing this. I used to be a tech guy. I used to be in software. I actually still can code to some degree. If you need your database coded, I'll do it for you. So after several years of being in the tech industry and doing everything, I was a really good trainer, by the way. And I said, what can I do? I want to leave the tech industry and I want to do something. I want my own business. So I said, I'll get into sales training. And I opened up a sales training franchise. And I started doing that. But my tech business kept on pulling me back and said, can you contract with us and do more training? And so my career started to blossom, and I was making money sales training, and I was making money doing this other tech training. And eventually the tech training became so big, it blossomed into my own business. I hired people, I trained people, and ran a business for 10 years, very successful, lots of money. But along the way, and it started early on when I left the corporate, my wife and I decided to adopt children, and we were adopting older children. And my first child was 5.5, but he had been in seven homes, and foster homes, and including his biological home at 5.5 years old. What a lot of transitions. And it didn't click to us, and we didn't know any of the details. But when you're moving from home to home to home, you're moving because there are problems. And we found out later 2 of them had been shut down for abuse. So there's suspected abuse. He had a lot of abuse. So that causes problems. So we were trained. We got our 10 weeks of training, which is the same thing in Massachusetts. It's the same thing that foster care parents get, 10 weeks of training, something I feel almost all parents should go through, because you learn so much about child development and how to handle problems and everything. But it didn't prepare us that much for what we were in for. He started to get a lot of problems in school. He got suspended in preschool. But we were committed. We were committed. We brought this child into our home. We weren't going to have him go to another home. We wanted to adopt him. And so we did. But his problems got worse. We tried, got him into therapy, child therapy, got meds. And at 10 years old, by the 10 years old, we had adopted 2 other children, and we're doing foster care at that time. So we had several children at home, and he was explosive. He was volatile, and he would hurt himself, hurt others. So we had to have him put in a residential. We weren't giving up on him. We were still his parents, but he was living in a full-time system where we had counselors, therapy, psychiatrists there. We thought this is going to be the answer for us. And it wasn't. He just got worse and worse until 17 years old. His therapist says he has to be put in psychiatric lockup. She was having him assessed for it. Now, along the way, when he was in there and we noticed this wasn't helping, it was making him worse, I had been introduced to NLP. In the sales training, we were using NLP communications patterns, right? We're teaching salespeople how to use different patents. So I looked up NLP, and I read some books by Tony Robbins, and I went to the whole Tony Robbins thing. I said, this has to be the answer. I saw miracles, what I thought were miracles. He would take someone who's suicidal, turn them around. And I said, I want to do this. Only thing is, it changed my life, but Tony Robbins doesn't teach you how to do this with other people. Yeah. So I said, I'll go to training. And I went to the first part of the NLP training, and my mentor said, Kevin, this is wonderful that you want to help them this way, but you can't work with family. And I think that most therapists know that. I didn't know that at the time. Most people that do this kind of work know that it's tough to work with family. So I got someone else that was trained the same way I was, but more experienced. A woman, a lady, a friend of mine now who's in Israel, Suzanne Kellner-Zink. And we started all these plans and to have her work with him. And the therapist at first was in for it, and then she found out hypnosis was maybe part of it, and she said, no, absolutely not. But I had already had these plans rolling. But then I knew she was against it. So we did in a short time, and that's where the story comes from, 3 5-hour sessions with him, and he was willing for this. He knew he had problems. He wanted to come home so bad, so he did all the work, 3 5-hour sessions within a matter of 5 days. We had to do it in a short time. Guess what? From that time on, he was able to come home. He hadn't been at our house with his siblings for over a year because he was too volatile. Every weekend, every school vacation, till they finally let him out 3 months later. He had been in there for 7 solid years, and he was the worst of their residents. And they let him out 3 months later, and he has not had a violent bone in his body ever since. And that was 14 years ago. He is 31 years old now, and he and his fiance are adopting a 6-year-old. the cycle turns.
Incredible story. I have so many questions. So why, I feel like as a parent, and I frequently have conversations with other parents, and if children are really having some emotional stress on a more serious level, they either turn to medication, and I'm definitely against that, or some of them will actually try, therapy. So why do you think in that professional environment didn't actually help your son, but actually make the situation worse? I'm just curious.
Therapy, a therapeutic process is not meant for instant change.
Mm-hmm.
It can take years and years and years. And some of your listeners might have been in therapy for many, many years, and it's a gradual thing. But also, there's one thing is that everybody is different. You can take two children who had the same experiences, have the same problems, and one therapeutic process would work for them and one wouldn't.
Mm.
And so with my son, nothing seemed to work for him. There's a protocol out there called EMDR, which has some fantastic results. What it did with my son, it made him worse. It made him worse. He had an ab reaction, and they had to pull him right out. And when they brought him back to the residential, he was absolutely uncontrollable for a couple of days. So it works on some people, doesn't work well on others. One of the reasons why when I approach my job, I have a large toolkit of different things that I will do. I'll hear about the problem. I'll actually figure out, well, maybe I'll go in this direction with this technique or that direction. And then when I start talking with them and I start seeing their reactions, I'll switch, because I'll say, well, I know that's not going to work for them. This will probably work for them. And as I'm working with somebody and I see whether it's working or not, I just keep in changing if I need to. Now, my techniques are short-term. They're in the moment. When you have a therapeutic process, it's let's give this process the time. This process is not something that's a one session thing. And I can appreciate that. So they don't know in one session or two or three or 8 if it's going to be working or not. They have to go through the whole process. And I live in a different world. They live in the world of consciousness. And it's all about really, what the content is. Mm-hmm. I live in the world of the context, meaning, okay, this is happening to you. What does it mean to you? And where is the feelings in your body right now? Okay. A typical therapist doesn't go that deep, or at least not from the beginning. Right. And then I work in the context of how the body and the subconscious mind is showing the problem. And again, I'll go back to, and how are you programmed for this problem? I'll figure it out and work from there. So, by the way, at that moment of that third session, I said to myself, I need to do this kind of work. I want to help people like this.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I finished all my training, and I've been working with people ever since. I've worked with young children. I've worked with teens, more teens as of late. I didn't get to work with teens early on like I thought I wanted to. I work with adults of all ages, and I love it. This is my mission in life, is to help as many people as I can to help themselves.
Yeah, I love this. I know I have lots of takeaways myself just listening to the story. One is definitely just like education, it's a personal journey, right? We wouldn't give the same medicine to every single patient. It's like that personal approach, right? I love that. Right. I also love the distinction you made between content and context. I think oftentimes people feel like, at least I made this mistake myself. We think that consuming content, right? Reading a book, like a webinar here, there, and all the information is going to lead to transformation. Absolutely not. And content itself does not lead to transformation. We have to, especially in terms of like affirmation, we can say, I'm great, I'm amazing. But if subconsciously you are feeling so bad about yourself, and that transformation will not happen, right? So I love how you're doing the deeper work, working with the context as opposed to only focusing on the content. So that is really, really, really powerful. I just want to make sure everyone gets that. So let's answer a few questions from the live audience. Pooja, I hope that's how to pronounce your name. Thank you for joining us live from India. I really appreciate you. So she asked, why do you think, Kevin, that most of the students and people have the fear of confidence or actually showing up, being in front of others, being who they are? I think that is a really powerful question. So why do you think that is the case?
Well, that's usually the case with, when your self-esteem is not up to par. What happens is, people are afraid of getting that feedback, really, because they're going to get instant feedback when they're showing up and they're in front of people, they're speaking in front of people. They're going to get that instant feedback by how the people are reacting, how they look. And they're afraid of getting negative feedback because they don't want their self-esteem to go even lower. They don't want to feel less about themselves. Self-esteem is pretty interesting because when you have a low self-esteem, or medium self-esteem, or however you want to put it, that's just kind of intact. You feel pretty good about yourself. But when you get feedback that you're not as good as you think you are, it brings you down. It brings you down. Now, if your self-esteem is at a decent level, you don't have to have this I am okay with myself and nothing that happens to me is going to affect me. That is, not many people are like that. But when it's at a decent level and you're really happy with yourself and you fail in some way and you get this feedback, what you end up saying to yourself is, hey, I know I'm not that great, but I'm certainly not that bad. So what happens is, you might have that feeling in a moment, you come and you bounce right back up. Okay. But most of us, and especially, and I haven't figured this out really well, but I do really appreciate what you do, because schools do not teach self-esteem. They do not build up confidence. And our children and our young generation does not have that confidence that they should. And I love what you do because you do a lot of stuff in building up confidence. And I don't know where it slipped by. So if someone doesn't have enough confidence in themselves, showing up and speaking in front of other people is not going to do it well, right? It's going to make their confidence go even lower. And that's what we're afraid of. By the way, some people are actually afraid of success too. Did you ever hear that, Dr. Ryan?
Totally. Yeah.
So if I show up and I'm really good in front of people, they're going to ask me to do it more and more often. And I'm going to actually have to come up with more stuff. And I'm going to have to be on my toes. Can I really do this? That's this kind of fear of success. Fear of success is really fear of failing in the future.
Right? Yeah, totally. I got it. And even just for me, and I have a taste of it because my business is growing. I'm like, wow, I can't actually maintain this, right? You have that, like negative talk, a little bit fear, like, wow, can't actually maintain this. Yeah, so I totally hear you. Yeah. So here is a great question from Alice, and thank you for joining us live. And she asked, like, I know you talked about this a little bit at the beginning of our interview. Do you still see lots of stigma around this type of work, or is actually getting better?
Okay. So there's still a lot of stigma if someone has problems and they have to go to therapy, to a psychiatrist and to a therapist. There's still that stigma. And when they come see me or hypnotist or something, it's a little less because people don't see this as, oh yeah, these are mental emotional problems that I have. So it's like, okay, I'm seeing this hypnotherapist, and it seems to be a little less stigma, but we really have to get this, whether they see someone like myself or they see actual therapists and psychiatrists, we really have to get the stigma out of there, because people have to get the help they have to need. I mean, there are people that I can't help. There are people that have really honest to goodness clinical diagnoses that, like a schizophrenia. Right. Schizophrenia has a lot of psychosis. And I actually started when I was really early in my career. I started working with someone with schizophrenia, and I triggered a psychosis, and I had his hands around my throat. Didn't scare me anywhere as much as it scared him. And I felt so bad. I said, I never want to do this again. I work with mental health disorders. If someone's got depression, if someone's got bipolar, or this or that, as long as their therapist knows about it. All right. So I always ask for a referral from a therapist, because I can attack it in a different way. The problem with something like schizophrenia or anything that has like psychosis is those things get triggered in many different ways. And when you're working at the subconscious level, that seems to be one of the things that trigger it. So there's certain things I don't work with, but people with mental health, mental health disorders, we really have to get rid of that stigma. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And it doesn't matter whether it's if it's a hypnotherapist, make sure that they work with emotional disorders. Okay. A lot of them are smoking, weight loss, and a few other things, but serious emotional disorders, make sure that they can do that. But don't be afraid of traditional therapists. If it's your first time and you don't know what the problem is, get the help wherever it is.
Yeah, I agree. And then just like, I'm just thinking about the students in my program. And I feel like almost all the students who join my program, regardless of their age, they really suffer from low self-esteem. Like they have no confidence. And I think, we really need more educators who actually show up, who believe in our children, who see more of their strengths. They're always using amplifying glasses to look at, wow, you're so bad at this. I love how you mentioned, labels stay with us forever. And even when I think about my life now, some of the things that I don't want to try was because there was one teacher in my life told me, you're so bad at this. And that for some reason is like, I'm like 40 already, like been with me for 4 decades. I was like, wow, right? Like, I think, I hope, educators watching this right now or watching this on replay really, and even parents understand the power of our words and how we are speaking to our children can have everlasting effect on their financial, emotional well-being and wealth. So I love that. It was so true, so good. Yeah. We have. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And our words can be not only hurtful in the moment, our words can last for a lifetime. So we really have to watch out that, where that is. By the way, self-esteem's, is someone with a high self-esteem, they're not great at everything, but they know that when they at least try their best, they're good. Right. And they know there's going to be some things they won't be able to do. And they say, okay, that's okay. I can't do this. Maybe I need more training or that. That's a kind of a really good self-esteem. A low self-esteem says, I just failed at that. I'm really lousy at everything else. Right. Or I don't even want to try that because, if I try that and I fail, then it's going to make me feel worse. So we need that. The self-esteem is just on teaching children that, hey, go ahead, and as long as you're trying your best, as long as you give it a good effort, that is good. And if you didn't make it there, you can either try again by changing up whatever you're doing, or let's move to something else and see where you're really good. But it's okay to fail. As adults and as entrepreneurs, you and I know, Dr. I, that it's failing is a good thing because we learn from it. We learn from our
100%. I mean, my business is built based on all the mistakes and failures I made. Oh, for sure, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a powerful difference, what you said here, Kevin, between, fixed mindset versus growth mindset, right? Like this is something that I teach even my own children. They say that, oh, I don't know this. I will tell them, you don't know this yet. So why don't you learn this so you will eventually know this, right? Like, don't perpetuate everything into a fixed state. So
Right. Exactly. And I love the wording, the wording right there. You don't know this yet. That's how we speak and how we communicate with our children is so big.
Yeah, it's huge. And also another way I changed was that if my children want to buy something, and they look at the price tag, so I can't afford this, and then I'll ask, how can you afford this, right? Just I feel like the way that I'm asking reframing questions can either lock them in a fixed state or open their mind and heart to potential possibility. Yeah, how can I afford this, right? Maybe I can do this, and that. So yeah.
Yeah. So when you're talking of growth mindset, you probably have read Carol Dwecker's book on mindset.
Classic.
One thing that amazed me, and it was talking about children, and it was talking about children that are really, really good at things. Sometimes they have a fixed mindset, which means, hey, they're fantastic in this, but then they avoid doing the other thing because they know that they're really good in one and they don't want to feel bad about not being in another. So even children that seem really smart, they won't attempt things that will get others to perceive them as not being so smart. They want to keep that. That's a fixed mindset. So think about that with your children when you're telling them, oh, you're so fantastic. Try to tell them that because you've tried and you found how great you are in this way, you can also find you're great in other ways, just on trying the other things. And that amazed me that, I wouldn't have thought that, you get some brilliant kids, yet they can still have fixed mindsets, and which will affect their self-esteem as well.
Totally. I feel guilty because I'm a teacher, and I feel like this is something that sometimes our teachers, we condition our children, because as a teacher, we're only teaching one class. We only know one aspect of the kid. We don't know how brilliant they are in other subjects. So we tend to say something that may hurt their children, right? Hurt the children. They're like, I'm so bad at this. But we don't see outside of this course I'm teaching, this kid is like a genius, right?
Yeah.
So we don't really see that. And I think, that is another factor. Yeah. We have so many great comments. I'm really having a hard time keeping up with everything. So I'm sorry if I missed yours. I love this from Michael. And thank you.
Oh, yes. Michael, that is great.
I am becoming, I love it. So I'm going to start using this. So powerful. Like you are communicating that organic growing state, right? Now just like I am, but I'm actually becoming this. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because life is a journey, not a destination. And that is beautiful. That really is.
Yeah. Here is a great question from Richard. And thank you for joining us live. So as a parent, and I'm a parent too, and Kevin is also a parent, we say to our children something like, as long as you are happy, that's my main concern. So does this in a way put pressure on children to always be happy? Wow, what a great question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And my first thought is exactly that, is when you say as long as you're happy, I'm okay and I'm happy, they're gonna think I have to be happy all the time. And by the way, when they're not with you, there are probably many moments and many times where they're not happy, they're frustrated, they're this or that. And that actually could, when you're tying their happiness to your concern, could cause problems in your own relationship. They could feel less of themselves because they think they're not making you happy. So, we're going, by the way, that book, Mindset by Gerald Dwecker, really opens the mind to a lot of these things, that how to deal with children. So you can look at that, but work on the fact that you want your children to always look to better themselves, and they won't be great. Let them know that they're not going to be great in everything. And it's okay, as long as they're always looking and trying to get to be decent, trying to do the work, trying to learn more. This is the growth mindset. Growth mindset is being open. It's being open. What I know may not always be everything. Matter of fact, my mentor and teacher has a great saying. He says it in Hawaiian, and I can't say it in Hawaiian, but he says, not everything is in my school, which means I'm open to the fact I can learn more. And if you can get your children to be open to the fact that they can learn more, and it's a good thing, that keeps them on tune, in track. But the original question, yeah, I think if you're constantly saying that to your child, then when they're not happy, they're going to start thinking about the relationship with you and not making you happy.
Yeah, I love this question, because this is something that I think about all the time. I ask myself, am I always happy? So I think maybe besides trying to always be happy, but I think my goal right now is to have a peace of mind, right? Like, even if when other things happen, when I lost a client, when I didn't close a deal, of course I'm not happy, but it will not affect my state of being. It will not affect my peace of mind. So I think if we can help our children always, because things do happen, right? They are going to lose their friends, this and that, but always maintain that peace of mind, regardless of what other things that happen outside their life. I think that will be really helping our children building some emotional resilience, right? Have a solid internal foundation.
That term emotional resilience, that is big factor. That is a big factor, because I think that's a problem a lot of teens have today, is they don't have a really good solid emotional resilience, because it's going to happen. There's going to be problems. You're going to lose friends. You're going to have relationships. You're going to have people, friends, and other students, and whatever it is, look at you in a different way, because you're different in one way or another. All right. One of the models that I teach adults this, and children need to learn this too. Not everybody thinks like you do. Everybody has different backgrounds, different experiences, and you just have to learn to respect that. Okay. That's why others act differently in the same situations. That's why others think differently in the same situations. It's important for us as adults to learn that. And it would be so cool for children to learn that too, so that they come to understand, hey, that's the reason why this person is freaking out, or that's the reason why this person's so angry. We got to learn that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, here's a great comment from someone doing us live on LinkedIn. So someone once asked on Quora about how billionaires and business leaders get where they are. So Elon Musk's ex-wife responded, the people who reach that level really don't think about happiness because of their drive. They often feel fulfilled around their business ventures, but oftentimes they are not happy. That's interesting.
Yeah, actually, and that's success in certain things, like success in business doesn't really always translate to happiness. Okay. Yeah. That's a misconception. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't some people that are very successful that aren't happy. Some people that are very successful have learned a balance, and they keep their personal life. They're able to also be happy in their personal life, and maybe they also share some of their wealth as well, and that makes them happy. But not everybody who's successful, you can't just assume that's success in business or success with money or whatever translates into happiness.
Yeah, totally. Now, this is such a fascinating conversation as we are talking about this right now. I think maybe what I do as a mom, a teacher, is to really help our children and students to uncover their calling in life. And if they can have their career be aligned with their calling, so they can have a sense of fulfillment. Even though on this journey there may be unhappy moments, overall they're feeling fulfilled and answering their call. And I think that would be really, really great. Yeah. This is great conversation. We are wrapping things up. And so I wonder if you can share some, based on also this question, what are some specific tactical like tips, actions that we can take away, like we can start implementing today to reprogram our conscious mind to really tap into the power of hypnosis and NLP to eliminate emotional stress, to have more abundance, become more fulfilled in our life.
So let's talk about releasing stress. Oh, you mind if I share my screen?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. Let's see. Okay. All right. So I didn't spell this correctly, maybe on purpose. It's not purposeful. It's purposeful breathing. Everybody knows that breathing helps, right? But there's a certain type of breathing that will help mostly. And I call it purposeful or purposeful because you want to start to breathe. You want to start to really breathe in a certain way. And the way to do it is in a deep belly breath, which means instead of inhaling and having your chest and your shoulders go out first, you breathe into your stomach, you breathe into your belly. And matter of fact, if you want to try it, you just put your hands on your stomach and you breathe in, and it should feel a little like a balloon inflating. And then you have a slow exhale. Matter of fact, the thing about 4x8 means that you want to exhale twice as long as your inhale. So you exhale twice as long as your inhale. So it's something like that. Now I'll tell you quickly. The reason why we inhale like that is we have something called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve, when it's activated, when it's stimulated, will slow your heart down. So, obviously when you're stressed, you're going to have an increased heart rate and your blood pressure is going to start to go up. When the vagus nerve is stimulated, and that's the belly breath that does it, it will slow your heart down and you'll start to feel better almost instantly. And also, there is a way of breathing, this 4x8, this exhale that we're doing. If you're interested, there's a book called Breath Walk. It looks like this. It's by Guru Sharan. And he tells you why the 4x8 timing, why the full exhale, double exhale works. So we come into this deep belly breath, we breathe in, and we exhale slowly, so we have a double time. By the way, another thing that happens when you breathe into your belly is you bring oxygen into your system. So if you teach your kids, you take this as a practice and say, okay, this is something this is a way to breathe when things gets a little stressful, and you actually practice it, once a day and spend 3 minutes or 2 minutes breathing. Sometimes, depending on your condition, you can get a little dizzy. So don't inhale and exhale as long if you're getting dizzy, but teach them that so that they know when they need it. Mm-hmm. And you can tell them as a parent, you can say, okay, it's time to take that deep breath. Let's do that deep breath. After a while, when they feel that feeling of stress, they'll automatically go to the breath without a reminder. Okay. So this is something we can use, and it's something that's really, really good. And I'll see if I can't stop sharing. I think you have to stop it.
Oh yeah, that's hold on, that's really powerful. Actually, every time when I feel stressed, I will actually practice this, because oftentimes on a daily basis, our breathing is so shallow, right? And then I'm going to teach this to my children.
Another thing to teach them is imagine that have them imagine in their imagination that they're breathing in really clean, fresh air and healing air, whatever it looks like in their imagination. And when they're breathing it out, they're breathing all the stress out. In their imagination, the stress can be all the pictures of all the things that are worrying them and giving them problems, all the thoughts, and have them imagine that it's all leaving with their breath. And that works powerfully.
That's powerful. I mean, like, especially I think everyone watching this, if you have young children, they are so suggestible. Like my 9 years old, I kind of conditioned meditation into his mind. Every time when he has like a stressful day, made a mistake, he will just go to his meditation room and just like quiet his mind and meditate and then come out. And then when he feel more emotionally balanced, I just love that. I feel like, yes.
That's beautiful. And by the way, for younger children, metaphors and stories are the best thing. When I work with children, I use this story in their imagination that they're going to a castle. And when they get into the castle, I do it all slow, the path and all the things in the drawbridge and everything. When they get into castle, they're starting to see pictures of themselves in the positive way from whatever problem they were having. Because imagination, pictures in their mind works phenomenal for children.
Totally.
I've worked with children with OCD and some other problems, and basically it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wonderful.
Yeah. I love it. So, wow. I feel like there's so much more I want to discuss with you. I want to ask you about what a fascinating conversation. So share with us, Kevin, where can people learn more about you? I have your website on the screen.
Okay.
So share with us what is a good way for people to connect with you and check out your amazing body of work.
All right. Well, on my website, there's a way to connect with me. And matter of fact, on my website, I explain this hypnosis and NLP and a bunch of other things that I do, so you can read up on it. It's a nice place to go for content on what it is I do. And you can reach me through there. If you're on Facebook, look me up, Kevin Martin in Lowell, Massachusetts. That's where I am. And I think it'll bring up, because every Tuesday morning at 9:00, I have a Coffee with Kevin session, so you can get your own coffee, tea, or a green drink and just share it with me as I have a little discussion. I've started to bring on guests once in a while, and just little tips for the week, little tips to get through the week. So those are things you can do. So reach me through the website, reach me through Facebook. You'll find me also on LinkedIn. You look through Dr. I's. If you're LinkedIn's with Dr. I, you'll find Kevin Martin right there as well. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have as well, if you have questions that didn't get answered today.
Yeah, love it, great. Yeah, I'm just reading everyone's comments. Yeah, I agree. Great discussion, right? So yeah, oh great. Thank you so much, everyone. I can't wait to catch up on the comments that we received. And thank you so much for joining us live on a Friday or Saturday for some of you.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you guys. And thank you so much to our guest, Kevin.
Right. Thank
you. So much value. Really, really love this conversation. So
I love being here. Thank you very much, Dr. I.
Yeah, of course. And thank you so much, Michael, Alice, everyone, Liz, Pooja, for joining us live from all over the globe. So I hope you guys will have a great weekend. And I look forward to seeing you again next Friday or Saturday, the same time, same location. Bye.